Hour. Joining me right now is Florida Congressman Byron Donalds. He is right in the middle of it. He is a member of the Oversight, Budget, and Small Business Committees. He's also a member of the Select Committee on the Economy, and he represents Fort Myers and Naples. Congressman, thanks very much for being here this morning. We've been watching your leadership in this terrible situation. First off, how are you doing? What are you seeing today? We're thinking of you and your constituents and all Floridians.
Good morning, Maria. It's good to be back with you. I was actually with, I'm good. Look, I mean, our area is devastated. I know President Biden was in here yesterday. We were doing kind of the overview of everything with his presser, him and Governor DeSantis, myself, Senator Scott, Senator Rubio. Look, we're just going to rebuild. I mean, the resolve of my community is fantastic. In spite of the devastation, everybody here has one goal in mind, and that's rebuilding our area and getting back to life as normal. I mean, we took a really tough storm, but it's been all hands on deck. The coordination, federal, state, local, has been tremendous, the best I've ever seen. And the biggest thing we're trying to do is just make sure we advocate for the people of Southwest Florida.
Congressman, I mean, it's interesting to see you and Governor DeSantis with President Biden. How was that meeting? I mean, the president has been attacking Republicans, attacking, DeSantis for sending migrants to Martha's Vineyard, and then he's with them looking at the damage. How was the meeting? What can you tell us?
I mean, look, I'll tell you this. I mean, everybody knows my stance on President Biden. I've been pretty vocal about how I think his job performance has gone. But we're in the middle of a disaster recovery. So I think everybody understands to put that stuff to the side and just be focused on the job at hand. I mean, even President Biden yesterday said that Governor DeSantis was doing a great job. He said that yesterday. Shocked me that he said it, but it's the truth. And so I think everybody understands that it's not time for politics. It's time to get the job done on behalf of people here in Southwest Florida and, frankly, throughout the rest of Florida, because we know that there has been flooding damage in Charlotte County, in Orange County, in Seminole County, going all the way as far north as Duval County and St. Johns County. So, you know, we have to do what's needed to be done in this moment. The politics, we can deal with that later.
Yeah, I know. But the other day, Kamala Harris said that aid is going to be doled out based on equity. And then the president yesterday, while he was touring the Ian destruction, he blamed the natural disaster of Ian on climate change. Listen to this.
Reservoirs out west are down to almost zero. We're in a situation where the Colorado River looks more like a stream. There's a lot going on. And I think the one thing this has finally ended is a discussion about whether or not there's climate change and we should do something about it.
Did he bring that up to you?
No, he didn't bring that up to me. I think that was just in his prepared remarks. I mean, look, I'm not going to get into climate change stuff. The one thing we need to make sure is FEMA going to be here for my people in my district. They're here. They're going to continue that commitment. Frankly, that's the only thing I care about right now. The other stuff about climate change and the equity stuff, I mean, that's just political stuff. But we've not had those discussions. It's not been a thing where, oh, are you going to start to do something about climate change? No. We're about recovery here in Southwest Florida. And so I think that, you know, you'll have people throw out their political talking points here or there. But when it comes down to what needs to happen, that's just not part of the conversation.
And when I spoke with you on Sunday, you talked about this recovery taking 2 years, perhaps, in some areas. And you were talking about the cost of at least $5 billion. Congressman, do you have a better assessment now, after all that you've done in these last few days, in terms of the cost of this disaster and what it will mean in terms of recovery timing?
No, we're still even trying to compile that. The great news that's occurred here is that all the resources have come together. I mean, listen, the governor was at one of my bridges yesterday, the Matt Lachey Bridge, which was rebuilt in 3 days. The initial estimates were that it was going to take months. It was rebuilt in 3 days. Now, it's a temporary bridge. We're going to have to continue to improve the engineering there, but that's so supplies can get on and get off. We're talking about the Sanibel Causeway having a similar temporary solution that should be done by the end of October so we can get resources onto Sanibel Island and off the island. In terms of total costs, I mean, it's too soon to tell. My estimate's probably a $5 billion or probably a little light. But, you know, the number one thing we want to do is have a true accounting of the damage. So that way we're not wasting taxpayer money when it comes to restoring things here in the state of Florida.
So what are you going to be looking for then from the federal response? I know that at the end of the year, when the government runs out of money, December 16th, the Democrats are expected to come up with more spending in that final spending package in this current Congress. Are you going to be asking for a supplemental package? How do you see this playing out in terms of money needed in Florida?
Well, I know Senator Scott and Senator Rubio have said the same thing. We're going to be looking for a clean supplemental for Florida. We don't really want it tied to continuing resolutions or whatever the case might be, because unfortunately what happens in these CRs is there's a ton of bad policy, a ton of wasteful spending that has been consistent for the past 20 months. And so we don't want to sign on to that stuff. What needs to happen for Florida should be for Florida. Just like if there's a disaster in another part of the country, that needs to have its own supplemental so that the members of Congress and the members of the Senate can look at the disaster itself and agree or disagree and support. That's what we're going to want to see for Florida, is just a clean supplemental for Florida and leave the other funding to the side. I mean, look, we unfortunately in the United States, the current majority party, they specialize in spending all kinds of money in all kinds of areas. The last thing we should be able to do is just have a focus on Florida and frankly also on South Carolina, because they've been dealing with damage from Hurricane Ian as well, and make sure that the supplemental for those two damaged areas is actually handled in a clean and appropriate way, and then you can get back to the ways of Washington on the other side.
And you think you'll get that?
That's my hope. That's what we're going to be pushing for.
It's largely water damage, right? I mean, this was obviously the winds were another factor, but is that largely the cost, the water? It was a water event.
It was both. I mean, look, the wind damage is what it is. You have power lines that were knocked out through at least 10 counties in Florida because this was a very strong storm. Obviously, debris removal from roofs being affected, so on and so forth. But the flooding, the storm surge is what caused the heavy damage. Also, inland, there was a levee breach at the Myakka River that affected Charlotte County, DeSoto County. So you're going to have a lot of these disaster points caused by flooding, caused by wind.
All right, Congressman, we're praying for you. Thanks very much. And for Floridians, Congressman Byron Donalds, thanks very much for the update.